Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar on Thursday. It's Tom McDonald from the CMA and SEMA, and we're glad to have you all with us today for a very special webinar on e-commerce strategy. We're blessed today to have the Advantage Group, Mark Hubbard, who you guys, a bunch of you listened to a couple months ago, walk through some of the e-commerce and other reports of how Advantage is working with retailers and manufacturers to get the information we need out there day in and day out so that we can do our jobs better. He's got Steve Henning from Wakefern ShopRite with him today. He's the Vice President of Digital Commerce and Analytics. And we were just having a great conversation about what category managers and shopper insights people need to know to help salespeople develop the right integrated e-commerce strategies. There's so much data out there. It's a second language that you need to learn. But as we all know from the results that we're seeing in grocery pickup, and then of course from the Amazons and others and what Wakefern and ShopRite are doing, this will continue to be a growth engine for CPG. And if you as a manufacturer are not getting it right, if you're not working together with the retailer to go ahead and come up with an integrated e-commerce strategy, then you're going to fail in this area. As you guys know, we put together the ECL paper last year. The 60-page deck was done with 10 retailers and 12 manufacturers. And if you don't have a copy of it, please let us know. We'll send you a copy. Today, you should find incredibly informational. And the great part is that both Steve and Mark are taking questions today. So please type them out in the question box. Steve's going to go ahead and do the first some slides, and then we'll get all the questions that you have for him on the table then and answered. And then Mark will go through a bunch of other slides on what Advantage is seeing with the work that they do across the US and internationally and the changes that they're seeing to date. Okay, so with no further ado, as I said, please type your questions out. I'll gently interrupt once Steve is done and we'll get all of them answered. Last go around, we had probably 20 or 25 questions. I'm hoping we'll get the same this time. Okay, so Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tom, and welcome everyone. This is Mark Hubbard. It's my pleasure to be the host for today's session on an integrated e-commerce strategy. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be made available along with all the slides within a couple of business days after we end this session. Again, Steve will take some questions and then we'll have some questions at the end. A bit of background on myself: despite this English accent, I'm actually an American by birth. I've also worked at Silicon Valley, at Google, a Silicon Valley startup, and I've been leading e-commerce in the entire US business for Advantage since 2014. So let's have a quick look at what we're going to talk about today. This is the agenda. More importantly, I was reading an article just yesterday from a company called ClickTail that said that 48% of all the brands or major brands that they talk to have a digital team. 48%. So half of you don't even have a digital team, and yet everything you read says somewhere between 50 and 80% of all sales are digitally influenced. So how the other half of you can't even have a digital team set up is beyond me. But even having a digital team is not enough. And we're going to discuss today some of the skills and traits and behaviors you need to be excellent in demonstrating to actually drive sales performance with your retail partners. Quick bit of background on Advantage for those of you who don't know us. We've got 30 years experience in more than 42 countries around the world, and we survey on average about 35,000 individuals at retailers every year, just at retailers, to understand what's driving their relationships with their supplier partners. Here in the States, we have over 3,500 people between the retailers and suppliers giving feedback. We have over 1,000 interviews annually just in the US on what's driving relationships between retailers and suppliers. And obviously some of the work we do includes e-commerce. We also have worked in the past with Amazon, Alibaba, Walmart.com, Ocado.com. So we have some pure play experience as well as our traditional bricks and mortar. And perhaps most importantly today, we have Steve Henning from Wakefern. And I want to congratulate Steve and the Wakefern ShopRite team for being ranked the #1 omni-channel retailer last year by CPG companies according to our research. So it's great that we have Steve here, who is actually representing the best company in terms of an integrated omni-channel experience. So why does any of this matter? Well, fundamentally it matters because you're going to make more money when you do it well. What we've seen through our research around the world, and certainly here in the States, is companies with stronger business relationships have better business results. It kind of makes sense, but how you do what you do fundamentally matters to your success. Now think about it as for your business. How much business are you missing out on every day, every year that you don't even know about because the retailer is listening to your competitors' ideas, marketing plan, or new products because you are not delivering a fully integrated e-commerce strategy? I suggest you're not missing out on tens of dollars, but maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars every year because you're not as integrated as you could be. You're not seen as the partner of choice with your retail partners, and they're listening to advice and guidance from your peers and competitors. And yet retailers are craving for you as an industry to give them better insights and really work with them to drive business performance. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Steve, and let's hear from the voice of the retailer about what they're looking for from their supplier partners.
Thanks so much for the introduction, and I will get going. I want to thank everyone for being on the call today. I'm Steve Hennig. I'm Vice President of Digital Commerce and Analytics, and I've been in this business now for a couple of years. And I'll just take you through some, stream of conscious thoughts on companies that work best with us and the tools and information that we're looking to collaborate on. And I think that'll be, a pretty consistent message that I'll be talking about today is this idea around collaboration, testing, and continuing to grow. And so, I was fortunate when I moved into this role. We got on the e-commerce bandwagon. We had great leadership who 17 years ago picked up on this before anybody was really writing about it. And we continue to try and grow and innovate our business. But I will tell you the rate of change is just mind-boggling. As we were talking about, before this call started with a smaller group, the pace is meteoric. Everybody is trying to innovate and trying to understand the value of this customer. And for us, it really has become this idea around content has become king. It used to be the platform was around transactions and making sure you could collect your transactions. Today, it's really about that's greens fees, and you really want to be able to have engaging content. And so we think about our ongoing goals is, how do we continue to connect our brand to our customers? They can connect with us online. You think about, for many of you who have more than a couple years of experience in the industry, it would all be about in-store execution and how to make the store come to life. Well, online is that same vein. So we'll continue to talk about content. And I'm not sure everybody who's on the phone right now, but I will tell you, when we talk about content, we get lots of different conversations from our partners. Content is more than just product imagery. However, the first thing you need to understand around your business is all your content up online? Do you have all your images online? Customers can't buy what they can't see. And it sounds basic, but we still have a great many of our partners who cannot get us the content we need. And then if you can get to that level of engagement, then you really have to start thinking around, how do you complete your content? How do you have all the nutrition information? How do you share information on gluten-free and lactose-free and all the other different food alternatives that customers are looking for? Because navigating this online is really just a function in search, and the more robust your information is, the better we'll be. And that doesn't even take you to a place of more enhanced content, more selling information that's available. And so I can't emphasize this enough because, we've been talking to our partners for a great many years around how to expand their content online. We all as an industry have to do better to create better content for our customers. We as a retailer, how we think about content is really around how we connect our monthly visitors to all the products that we have available and developing content that's engaging. We've made sure our site is responsive and so that it renders properly on mobile devices. More than half of our customers today are connected via a mobile device. We're working on enhanced personalization, so when people sign into our website, the recommendations for product are unique to them. And I bring these things up because as you start to think about content and how you bring that to life, there is a great journey in front of us. And so the more information you can bring to the retailers, the better those customer experiences will be online. We work around how we can socialize our home pages to bring events to life. So, when we're bringing dinner to life online, we can bring together all the products that you can't naturally bring together in store. So we can bring together the chicken breast, the mozzarella, the sauce, the bread, and the recipe combined And so that's, as we think about how we expand our platform, it's really around how we make the consumer journey that much easier. And it's so much easier online because you don't have the barriers of an 80,000 square foot store. So as we talk about content, we're talking around what's the imagery our partners can help us with online. Can they bring additional video? What is the level of recipe content that they can help us to make the experience as great as it is? Shoppable recipes where we connect UPCs items together so that they can in one click add those items to their basket are a big deal. And so hopefully you're getting a sense of, content is far beyond the imagery. And unfortunately in the industry, we're still talking about how do I get the right picture of the item online? And certainly some of you on the line, your organizations have made leaps and bounds improvements on this, but others not so many. And the other thing I'll talk about before I take some questions really is this idea about how to engage with these customers online. And so we have already moved to an environment where we offer online promotions to our customers that show off new brands, show off solving a consumer problem on what's for dinner. And so think about how you can cobble together your brands with other brands to create unique online promotions that drive transactions. Because I think most of you already know this, but the average basket online is significantly larger than any basket you'll see in store. For us, it's anywhere from 4 to 5 times larger. So when those customers come in, they are stocking up. They're buying a lot of products, and they're creating very large baskets. So creating these large bundle online promotions are not a stretch for our customers as we think about it. So I'll leave you with kind of, as we think about what is great success for us. I've talked about some of the kind of tactical ways you can bring this together. But I think the most important thing is, we are looking for a dedicated e-com team, people who speak the language, who understand what an API is, who understand what search really means, understand how to bring their assets to life online. And we're also looking for partners who can move with great speed, who can innovate, develop topics, bring them to life, measure them, and continue to roll them out. And too often what we're seeing is many of our partners who come to us, they're not connected as much as they should be with their sales team. And so we really think about e-commerce as a tool to amplify our sales, to have customers engage with us in a meaningful way. And so we're working very hard on making sure the e-commerce team, the sales team, the product team in the Wakefront world are connected and working in unison to make sure the product is available, make sure the promotions are lined up, making sure the content is there, and leveraging all of our digital assets as well as our in-store assets to really, take sales to a whole new level. And we've had great success with some of our vendor partners bringing this to life as they think of this as a way to augment their sales and not as just one way to get sales. And so with that, I'm gonna pause, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, the first question is, can you give an example? You talked about what winning manufacturers have to do. Can you give an example of what a winning manufacturer's team looks like who calls on you? And then how do they interact kind of with the regular sales team, if you can speak to that?
Yeah, so I would say it starts at a very high level. We do a lot of joint business planning. And in the past, many of those meetings would occur in different rooms. And the product divisions, brick and mortar, would not be together with the online people. So the first thing is we start to build these joint business plans where e-commerce is in the conversation as another strategy and another tool to use. And quite honestly, then as we translate that down or waterfall that down as some of our meetings, the sales organization and the e-com organization will come together to continue to bring those plans to life. And really do some really interesting things. And so I think that's probably the most important way that we've stopped separating the two from the conversation.
Let me just build on that for a second, Steve, because that's a great story. Thank you for sharing. Like, I was at Walmart.com back in 2015, and that was one of their biggest complaints. We're talking about 4 years ago now, and they were talking about it back then. You as an industry, the CPGs, are coming to me separately. Here's my digital team, here's my store team, never the twain shall meet. It is criminal if you are not fully integrated, working together as one voice of the supplier. And while we all know that certain retailers aren't quite as sophisticated as ShopRite, they are craving that from you. So even if they are not an integrated team like we see at Wakefront and ShopRite, I can tell you that every retailer we talk to is asking for that same thing. bring it together. When we have a meeting, I expect the digital and the supply chain folks to be in the room at the same time. If you are not doing that, you are missing a huge opportunity, because the very breasts and brides have been doing that for 3 and 4 years now. Sorry, next question.
Great. No, great ad, Mark. Steve, as a question in on what makes someone an incredibly valuable person calling on you from the e-commerce front? What are those skills that they need to have and kind of the characteristics?
Listen, I think it's two things. One is that they're empowered to make decisions. They're empowered to step a little outside of the box and create programs that might be unique, or create a selling proposition that may be a little different. And so their organization empowers them to take, kind of controlled risks and to innovate and try different things. And I think the other thing is really great partners provide a lot of insight, thought-provoking ideas. And I'll just, for many years I was in product teams, and when the new shelf came in, hey, this was the shelf we rolled out. It's been proven. Nielsen validated it. The data was easy to get to. It was easy to validate performance, and it was easy to roll out. I think we're in the very early chapters right now of e-commerce. There's not a great level of benchmarking across the industry to know what's working and what's not. And I think just kind of coming together as an industry about sharing things that work really well, jettison things that aren't working, and really collaborating in a more meaningful way in the absence of great benchmarking data is one of the most important things we can get to.
Hey, Steve, next question.
Yeah.
For those
Sure.
manufacturers that are partnering with you closely, what kind of data are you sharing with them? And then what kind of data and insights are they sharing with you?
Yeah, so through our frequent shopper data, we actually break out online sales from brick and mortar sales. So they have pretty good clarity on what's performing online versus what's performing in store. And listen, those insights become really helpful because we see significant differences in the SKUs that sell online versus the SKUs that sell in store. And so it allows us to create strategies in both an online and offline world. Really, for what we're seeing from our vendors is they're sharing things that they're seeing, for example, in China, in Europe, what's happening with, Ocado or Tesco, because if you think about the UK, they're 2 or 3 times as developed as the US. They're sharing, great thinking around operations that they're seeing across the US, and talking about best executional strategies to become more efficient at retail. It's really all of those types of things. And, the industry is evolving so rapidly. I had the great fortune of presenting some interesting thinking to our senior leadership team a couple of months ago, and most of it was in cartoon form. And someone said to me, well, where can I see this? And I said, well, we have to go to Asia to go see this. We have to get on a plane and fly 14 hours away, because that's the first implementation. I think there is a lot of that happen in the industry right now. You can't just go to the store in town right next to you. And so, CPGs helping share what's happening both globally and across the US is really, really powerful as this industry continues to evolve. Because when you really think about it, e-commerce is really going to fundamentally change how we distribute food in North America. And so it's early in the game right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's early in the game. There's a lot of learnings internationally. When we lived in the UK, in 2000 through 2004, there was already grocery pickup. So there's tremendous learnings from countries like that, and then everyone knows what's going on in Asia in terms of all the things that they're testing. But to bring that kind of thing to America and to retailers is incredibly valuable, because it brings insight into how shoppers will be changing in the future. Steve, if you had to give a piece of advice to a young person in the crowd today, right, who's listening, about what they should learn to go ahead and succeed in e-commerce, what would you suggest to them?
I would suggest that one is have a great professional network that you can lean on to talk to, and continue to ask questions and listen, right? I mean, I spend most of my time asking people for input, what they think, what they see. And I think that is the most important thing, that people just right now have to have an open mind have to say, why can't I make this work in my environment? And how can I continue to push the ball forward? Those are just so critically important today as this industry continues to evolve.
Great. What categories are the fastest growing for you now from an e-commerce standpoint at Wakefern?
You know, I'll tell you what, I know I get viewership on a lot. I don't know that I can actually give you that answer because I'd be completely making it up. I haven't taken a look in a little bit about what are the fastest selling categories. So I don't know. I don't want to misquote. So I wish I could tell you. We really
No
think
problem.
about we're for us, we're spending a lot of time really just making sure that we're putting the categories consumer facing that offer us the greatest benefit. So it's a lot of the same categories that sell online. It's just different SKUs. So it's a bigger pack, those types of things.
Perfect. That's great. And then you live in an incredibly competitive market in New York versus a lot of the balance of the US, right? Where you have a lot of food pure plays and you have other pure plays there. As you guys take a look at your strategic plan, Wakefern wise, are there, as you look at that competitive set, are there certain categories or certain regimens that you believe are going to be even more important in the next year to attract your target shopper?
You know what? I would put it this way. What we're thinking about is how do we evolve our platform to be as engaging as anybody else's who's out there? Because as we think about it, right? If you go back 15 years ago, there wasn't a lot of choice. If you wanted to shop online, you came to us and maybe one other. In today's world, if our site isn't stable, if our links don't work, if our mobile app is latent, there's 20 other choices that they can go to. So we really think about, one, how do we build a compelling customer experience online that makes the customer's journey as easy and effortless as it can be? And the other side of this is we think a lot about how do we continue to scale the business in a meaningful way that is prudent. Because this business we're seeing many of our stores that are north of 10% penetration, and how do we make sure we can continue to meet that consumer demand? Because if we don't meet that consumer demand, someone else will. So we really think about best experience online, best execution at retail, and the categories will quite honestly ebb and flow with how consumers change. And we continue to take that input and try and bring those offers forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's all the questions for now. I wanted to first thank you for sharing such great perspective. Secondarily, congratulations on the phenomenal result of being ranked #1 in the latest Advantage survey. With the competitive set that you have and what you compete with every day, that's a tremendous honor. So congratulations.
Well, listen, I can't thank you enough. And for the people who voted for us, we're thrilled and we appreciate that. And I would ask everybody on the phone, keep coming in and pushing us and challenge us to think and evolve, because the one thing we know is that change is as fast as it's ever been, and it's never going to be this slow again. And so we need our partners to really make sure that we're aware and we're challenging any blind spots that we have.
Great, thank you, Steve. That was fantastic. So Steve mentioned about an ability or a lack of ability to look at benchmarking and sharing. And we've been tracking e-commerce for 4 years, both with pure play and bricks and mortar, omni-channel retailers. And we actually measure things like who's leading in digital leadership, who's leading in providing insights, online product content, and dedicated e-commerce personnel. So if you're looking for more best in class of those capabilities, please reach out. But let's look at what's the #1 influencer of an integrated e-commerce strategy. Through our research over the last few years, very loudly and clearly, it's 2 elements. It's people and it's marketing. It sounds obvious. We'll get into the details in just a second. But when we say integrated people, what does it mean? It doesn't mean an e-com team over here and a stores team over there. And again, that they don't talk. If you want to be a true leader, a world-class leader, you have to have one team calling on a retailer that has the marketing and sales group, the digital e-commerce group, and the supply chain group all together in the room at the same time. Again, if you are not doing that today, you are missing a trick, because the very best and brightest have been doing that for 3, 4, 5 years now. And in terms of people, again, I'll take you back to a story from back in 2015 with Walmart.com. One of their concerns at the time, and I think still is relevant now for many retailers, is the quality of the people you have on your e-com team. You know, it's a new space, it's evolving. There's not a lot of talent out there, right, that have got years of e-com experience. So traditionally as a CPG, we might just put, oh, you're a millennial, you're a 20-something, therefore you must be the most digitally savvy in the company. You'll go on the e-com team. We're talking about, this was with Steve and Tom before the session. If you can't talk the language, if you're not highly skilled in that, don't put them in front of the retailer. You need to make sure that your e-commerce people are really embedded in that language and understand how to talk e-commerce and digital. And you must be integrating your marketing too. It's really important. It seems so obvious, but again, you're going to amplify your message, right, when you do an online and an e-stores thing at the same time. We hear a lot of complaints still from retailers saying, hey, I ran a promotion online, I ran a separate promotion in store, they weren't really linked. I think I could have got a better lift, right? So how are you as a CPG going to market? How are you spending those very precious dollars and cents? Because no one's got more money to spend, right? So you want to maximize that. And if you're not bringing the marketing together to amplify your message, you're truly, missing out. And I can tell you 2-3 of the biggest CPGs in the world that are constantly in our research seen as the very best and brightest, they've had fully integrated people and marketing teams. They're integrating their data. They've been doing that for 3 and 4 years now. So integration is old news to them. For the industry at large, it's still kind of new news. But that's what you're trying to get to. So let's look at what customers, or in this case, what retailers are saying about having an integrated e-commerce strategy. I'll let you read it. These are real quotes from retailers about great supplier partners and what they're doing. So while you're reading those comments, just recently I was catching up on Deloitte's Grocery Digital Divide 2018 report, and they believe that 89% of retailers have told them that they don't have much confidence in a CPG company's digital capabilities. And Steve kind of alluded to that as well, right? Certain CPGs are clearly understanding the space, doing well, but the vast majority of the retailers out there do not feel that you as an industry, the CPGs, truly understand the space and they have confidence in what you're going to be able to do for them. But these are some examples of what they're looking for. In fact, a Forrester report recently said that about 50% of all grocery sales are digitally influenced. Same thing from Deloitte. So even if you're not talking to a retailer that has, we'll call it an e-com sales arm, right? Half of their sales are digitally influenced now, and you need to make sure you're talking digital even to a retailer that may be less sophisticated than a Wakefern or a pure play retailer for that matter. If we look at, again, what are those best-in-class behaviors and traits, and there's a lot here. Again, you're going to get a full copy of the deck afterwards, but this is what retailers are telling us are really important to them, and these are the behaviors and traits you should be demonstrating to be seen as best-in-class. Let's take a look at the top one. Do you have a plan and a strategy for digital? Well, what does that really mean? It's not just having a plan and a strategy, because most of us can get to that point, but have you as a business clearly articulated frequently over and over again to your retailer what the game plan is and how you are linking your digital initiatives and activities to their business? If you are not doing that, you are not world class, because everyone's got a plan, but the very best and brightest CPGs out there are talking about that plan in a meaningful way to the retailer that drives growth. And that really leads to the very bottom comment about you've got to help us, the retailer, differentiate us by adapting to our strategy and our digital needs. And again, that's another critical point that retailers tell us all the time. Our best partners are not just big on digital, whatever it might be, but they're understanding how to take what they're trying to achieve and link it to our shopper, which is unique, and to our digital strategy, which may be unique even if the same shopper is like with another retailer. So I encourage you to really think about how are you personalizing your message to your retailer partner, because when you do that, you really win and you really stand out. And by standing out, you then have the credibility to win the next opportunity in the next 50-50. Because don't forget, every CPG company is talking to a retailer in some way about digital. But why should that retailer listen to you and your message when everyone's talking about it? We've got to build that trust and that relationship and that expertise that makes them think, yes, this is a supplier. When they have a piece of advice, I'm going to listen to it. Now let's look at what some of the poor performing companies are doing. Again, these are real quotes from real retailers. I'll give you a moment to read some of those. So retailers tell us there is a lack of integration with bricks and mortar. So I challenge everyone right now to take a moment and pause and say, am I showing up as an e-com team? And down the hall is my, call it traditional sales guys and girls. You cannot do that anymore if you want to be world class. You must show up together in that, as again, Steve mentioned himself, right? We're having JVP meetings with our partners. We need to bring all the people into the room at the same time to build that plan. If you are still having separate meetings, you're losing. Again, is your role a superior partner? Your role is to help integration. And while we all know that not every retailer is fully integrated yet, you as a leading CPG, you as someone who's going to demonstrate digital leadership and expertise, need to be driving that integration message. Whether your retail partner's at the level of a Wakefern or not, shouldn't matter. You should be encouraging your retailer, hey, we want to have a digital conversation. We need to bring the merchandising team in. We need to bring the stores team in because we want to make it a holistic approach. That's where we're going to get the best ROI, and you, Mr. or Mrs. Retailer, are going to get the best results. So these are some of the negative behaviors and traits that we're seeing. Behaviors you should be avoiding. Again, it's in red. These are, again, real analysis from retailers over the last 3 years here in the States about what are poor performing suppliers doing? What are the things that are rubbing them the wrong way? And I encourage you to take a minute and ask yourself, are we doing any of these? If we are, you're missing a trick. So what are the 6 key behaviors and traits? When we look at all this and look at all the drivers and the research behind it, there are 6 kind of core behaviors and traits that seem to drive the perception with a retailer having an integrated digital strategy. 1 is actually demonstrating an omni-channel approach, again, bringing it all together. 2 is being a digital thought leader. In fact, something we actually measure now in our research because it's so important, and Steve mentioned about the need for insights and sharing, right? So we can actually tell you, are you perceived as a digital thought leader? And we have those best in traits, behaviors, and we're going to mention in just a moment. Are you supporting the retailer's digital strategy? Again, you may have your own strategy. You have to link it to what they are trying to do. Otherwise, it will fall on deaf ears. You need to leverage social media. And again, everyone has a social media strategy, but really, how are you doing that to amplify your message? Or do you have 20 platforms of 20 different messages, plus what you're doing in store, plus what you're trying to do on the retailer's site? You need to link it together. Again, you need to help that retailer differentiate and adapt to their digital needs. Remember, every retailer's at a different development stage, different goals, different shoppers. You need to personalize. And again, are you providing relevant, actual insights and data? Steve again mentioned this, taking away my thunder in some ways. You need to make sure you're delivering insights. We measure that in our research. What do retailers think about the quality of your insights? And that is almost table stakes now. If you want to be seen as a thought leader, if you want your retail partner or your buyer to accept your proposal or recommendation, you better be seen as a thought leader, because those thought leaders are the ones that are winning that 50-50 jump ball. They're getting their promotion, their idea taken, and you're just going to be a fast follower at best. I now have slides on each of these capabilities. So from a marketing ROI point of view, integration can lead to amplification. It's really critical, right, to bring it all together. And again, ask yourselves, ask the marketing team, are we linking everything we're trying to do? Because the very best CPGs have been doing this for 2 or 3 years now. When you have separate e-com plans and store plans, the message is getting diluted. It's not as effective with the consumer. It's certainly not as effective as the retailer, and ultimately sales are going to suffer. So let's look at what does being a digital thought leader look like. They're forward thinking, right? They're looking at what's happening right now in the market, but also, again, to Steve and Tom's point, are you looking at other markets? If you are an international company already, I would have said 2 years ago, go to the UK, right? UK is the most sophisticated e-com market in the world. I'd actually argue parts of Asia now have kind of got further ahead because of how they're doing digital delivery, digital couponing, mobile work. So if you're not looking at Southeast Asia, you're not looking at the UK, you're missing a trick, because those markets are probably 5 to 10 years ahead of where the US is on average. Oh, and by the way, as you know, Kroger has launched a new warehousing capability, right, through ocado.co.uk and their capabilities. So that last mile work is happening around the world already, and you should be looking at other markets to try and bring thought leadership and advice to your retail partners. And again, you've got to be creative. You've got to be iterating, because this is not a static market. And as again, to paraphrase Steve's words, We'll never be as slow as we are today, right? The business is only going to accelerate. So use the kind of slow pace we have right now to look at iteration and keep adapting and evolving. Are you supporting their strategy? It means a lot to a retailer when you talk in their language about their shoppers. If you're coming with generic marketing plans, again, you're missing a trick. While your idea may be accepted, I can tell you the very best and brightest are always constantly personalizing their message to make it matter to the retailer because it drives dollars and cents. And again, are you making sure you're linking different social media platforms to have a holistic approach? To that point, social is obviously huge, right? It's a great place for brand awareness, but it's also really important for you as a brand to make sure your message is out there. And again, this is a quote from a retailer. A company that is best in class at an integrated strategy gets engaged on the social media side. They're integrating with a website, our app, their own apps, their websites. So again, ask yourself, ask the digital team, when they're out there promoting on social media, how are they linking that back to store X, to retailer Y? If they're not doing that and they're just simply pushing a message out there, they're not fully enhancing the commercial opportunities available. That's when you win, when you're linking your social message to the broader platforms out there and to that particular retailer strategy. And many retailers have their own social teams, right? How are you connecting with them? Is your social team talking to the Wakefern social team or any other retailer social team? If not, you're missing an opportunity to amplify your message. Again, adapt. It's really critical. You have to come with your vision that meets the retailer's online platform. The challenge, right, for a retailer is that any product, anywhere, anytime is available, but their unique shoppers have unique needs. How do you make it meaningful to them and their shoppers to go to their site and drive traffic to them? Differentiation is so key in the online world now. Otherwise, we'll all know who we're going to go and buy from, right? Most people are Prime members, and so it's a natural default as where they're locking retailers. As way to lock suppliers in is to make sure you're on those subscribe and save solutions. So to make your retail partner in bricks and mortar win, you have to think about what is the unique point of differentiation that they can offer that makes them stand out and makes me as a shopper want to choose their website over anyone else's. Point 6, providing relevant, actionable data. Again, there's some quotes right here, but how are you really showing up? How are you helping coach and educate your retail partner? Because unfortunately, not everyone's at the stage of Wakefern. They are, again, one of the most sophisticated omni-channel retailers out there. But all retailers want to get to Wakefern's stage, and they want to get beyond Wakefern's, where Wakefern's at today, right? So how do you help your partners understand the language? Can you do lunch and learns? Can you bring your digital team in and offer a lunch and learn to all their team? I bet most retailers would be thrilled if one of their CPG partners said, I'm going to run a lunch and learn for you just to teach your teams from finance to marketing to supply chain about digital trends and e-commerce. How do you think they're going to think about you differently by offering something as simple as that? Obviously, it's a great self-promotion tool as well. So a lot of content we talked about. Here is a little cheat sheet. Please print this out when you get a copy of the deck. It is your guide to kind of gut check yourself, both from an integrated e-commerce strategy and support for shopper marketing. And I encourage you to share this particular one-pager with your colleagues and have them sit down for a few minutes and kind of challenge themselves. Are we doing these behaviors and traits? If we're not, if we're still in a silo, we've got to stop that right now, because the very best companies are doing that. And insist, that the sales team are bringing you into every meeting. Then listen first and then give advice second. Make sure you understand where the retailer's at before you start on your sales pitch or your idea. So that's the end of my slides. I'm happy to take any questions anyone would have.
Hey, Mark, first question, kind of from the surveys you've done and what you see, who are the most successful e-commerce people in terms of the skill sets they have and the skill sets they're developing?
Great question. It's not just based on age. Clearly, younger associates tend to have done well because they've grown up in the e-com space, but they really are able to communicate. And that's, I think, the biggest opportunity that people have, is not just finding someone who is, Silicon Valley, experienced or grown up in e-commerce, but are they good communicators and are they good listeners? Because those that can listen to your retailer's story and then communicate back how you as a brand are going to drive that result, support that initiative, are the ones that are really the most successful.
Great. Next question is along the same guys. If you had to develop a certain skill set to go ahead and drive your business, what are the 2 or 3 most important skills that you would look for someone? We have a lot of manufacturers who are just moving into this. They don't even know what do I need someone to be able to do, or what are the key skill sets that somebody needs to have? Could you name 2 or 3 of those?
Sure. So as I mentioned, part of this is we track through our research and what are the key drivers of performance. And one of the big things that retailers are looking for, right, is clearly someone who actually understands the space. So no disrespect, but putting someone green into the space doesn't fill your retailer with confidence. So some digital experience already is very helpful. What's really important is for them to be a decision maker. Doesn't necessarily matter what level they are, whether they're a junior analyst or a VP of sales, whatever. Have you given them the authority to make a decision to move a project forward? Speed is so important now, particularly in e-commerce, right? And so it's not necessarily a skill that person has, it's a skill you as a company have allowed them to demonstrate.
Perfect. What piece of advice would you give to one of our smaller companies, right, who's just putting their foot in the water here on how to get started?
Yeah, look, I won't name names right now because they're not on I can't guarantee they're on the phone, but you don't have to be the biggest CPG company in the world to be the best at e-commerce. In fact, in our research, there are several, what you might be surprised at, smaller companies, shall we say, that are seen as absolutely world-class leaders in what they do. So you don't have to be one of the big, 5 or 6 multi-billion-dollar CPGs. You can be a relatively small company, but you've got to put effort into it. So you have to make a conscious decision, right? We're probably going to lose money in the short run, right? Because e-com sales are only 2-3% of the total US. But if 50% of all our sales are digital influenced, there's a massive part of the market we're not capturing. So what I would say is you've got to go in, you've got to put effort against that, you've got to empower your people, and you can't, boil the ocean. So who are the 2 or 3 retailers where you think you have a good business now, or they are, we'll call it e-commerce progressives, and you can start to win with there and then build up that skills there and start to build and build. But you can't just link e-commerce to online sales because so much of the store sales now are digital influenced. You have to be putting resources against that, even if it's switching we'll call it traditional shopper marketing person into more of an e-com related role, because so much of your business is e-com influenced.
Yep, that's great advice. I'll ask for last round of questions. If anybody has anything, please go ahead and type out the question and we'll get it answered for you. Mark, what kind of closing comments do you have for us today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for the opportunity and the time. What I would say is it's a fast moving space. We all know that, but you've got to jump in. You have to be moving forward and know that even what world-class looks like today, I can come back next year and I'll give you a different answer for world-class. And 2 years from now, I'll give you a different answer again. So it is a continuum that's certainly not going to end, in my view, in the next 5 to 10 years. And so the biggest thing you can do is get involved, make sure you bring it all together by at least showing up to the meetings.
Perfect. All right, that looks to be the end of the questions. You have Mark's details on here to go ahead and contact him and to get a further deep dip of what Advantage does, how they can help your business. From a Wakefern perspective, you heard what they're looking for. It's now up to you to go ahead and put together a plan that will allow you to grow your business there. It was great feedback on exactly what to do to become a partner with them. Now it's up to you on doing that work and becoming a partner. So we thank Steve and Mark today for going ahead and presenting. I thought it was a very informative and a great way for our audience to go and get e-commerce humming at their respective organization. So if you can go ahead and take that checklist and put that into work, if you can go ahead and take the tips that Steve gave you to work with Wakefern, your business will go ahead and turn around. So we thank you guys for coming in on a Thursday, listening to the webinar. We hope you have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. And Mark, Steve, thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.